definitely do on this airplane. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
So, does it make the Prowler's mission obsolete in terms of suppression of enemy air defense?
Yeah, I don't know if I told you, I put it up there on the board. Supposedly, this is what they say. The airplane is 4 times better than any operating fighter in the aircraft in the world today, in the country. It's 8 times better air to ground, and in recon and siege is suppression of enemy air defense, it's 3 times better. Now this airplane, you can shoot backwards. You can, if you sit in the cockpit, you look down, you can see, you look right through your feet, you see the ground. Any place you look, you're seeing, they don't have a HUD anymore. The heads-up display, you know, it used to be on the gun sight. Now, one of the things they don't like, you got to have your visor down, because everything is in there. But I mean, it's magic. It's everything is almost the F-18. I used to kid about it. Everything works in the airplane but the pilot. It's so automatic. Yes, sir.
Did you say that, I mean, this can also be used for close air support?
Oh, yeah, that's why we bought it. That's all we cared about.
By the Marines were one, but I mean, this is what we were talking about in the car, about 810.
No, well, no, that's its best suit, is air to ground. I mean, we got these systems down. When I was in Vietnam, I might as well have been flying a First World War airplane as far as the gun sight went. It was a pipper. I cranked in the meters, color meter went down like 140 mils or whatever it was. These things, I mean, you just crank, you put a dot on the target, squeeze a button, and when the parameters, it comes off. So but closed air support, it's great. But see, we don't, I mean, they see us in closed air support. We're not standing on. That we're down there amongst them, you know, and so we don't need this magic, but we got it, whether we like it or not.
No, I just as an aside, so you know, I don't know if you remember the old Sullivan project.
Which one?
The Army came up with the Sullivan, which is an unmanned UAV. It had the same kind of parameters, gold watch. It was where the numbers at DARPA at the time when we were developing it, and it was basically to give you a view of the battlefield.
Yeah.
Well, someone had the right idea. Well, when you do that, why can't we do this? And so they engineers went back and added to the thing. Which means you have to expand the wingspan, you have to add more for fuels. And then it came back and said, well, we can do that, why can't we do this? And you've got these.
Okay, well, these drones today, I mean, they do a magnificent job.
Oh, no, they do.
But the problem is that we've had with the Marines, and I had the Warfighting Center, we couldn't get anybody to do it. You know, they can get this intel back to the White House, the National Command Center. They can't get it to the battalion commander that's fighting the war on this side of the hill to see what's on that side. That's what we're trying to do, is figure out a way to get him. Now, this airplane can do all that. This airplane is interoperable with all other airplanes, American airplanes, with the ground radios. I mean, they made it so it's magic. The guy on the ground can type in whatever he wants to target, automatically goes to that airplane, and he hits go, and it takes it there and drops the bomb. Yes, sir.
I have a real close question. What do you think, will F-35 Lightning II be the last manned jet fighter?
Well, you know, if you'd asked me that a year ago, I'd have said yes. But lately, I see the Navy is looking for an advanced fighter now. See, they're trying, I think, you know, they'd really like to back out of this F-35C. They've had, first of all, when they first tested it, they put the tail hook in the wrong place. It couldn't fly aboard a carrier, and that's what it's for. So now, I don't know if they've corrected that or not, but the Navy is not enamored with it. It's not going to have that much more range than their present F-18, so if the Navy, you know, they're trying to get it. But under these budget conditions, I would say it probably is. But
my question pertained more towards pilotless and drones. They seem to have a lot better.
Yeah, well, I think this probably is your last pilot fighter, for sure.
Right.
It's going to be in helos. You know, we'll be in those things, but...
And a few more comments if I may. So if you don't have, what is it, $250,000 for a helmet, you can try something called Oculus Rift. That's a $300 virtual reality headset that I'm sure will give you as
I hope our guys are looking at that. But knowing them with their $600 hammers, I'm not sure. Yes, sir. But I'm checking what Roman said. I'm sure that, you know, they're looking at this. These prices, can you imagine $600,000 for a helmet? Yeah. That's what they said that the very last may cost. And, I mean, it's unbelievable. We can't afford this kind of money going in these weapons.
You talked about the difference in engine thrust between two planes, and I can't remember.
The thrust?
The difference in engine thrust.
Well, they're both, well, they're
What's-
43,000 pounds in afterburner, up and away. Well, up and away. See, all three airplanes are the same, up and away. The jet goes out the back end. Jet thrust.
Right.
The only one that's different is the Marine in the landing mode, then it goes down to 41.9, the thrust. But it's bags of thrust. It means that you can bring back. That's the other thing. The Air Force one weighs about 29,000, 30,000 pounds empty. The Marine one weighs 32, and the Navy one weighs 34. But we can bring back, I think, 6,000 pounds of gas or ordnance. And so, which is great, because we have 100% boarding rate. As I said, you come in and you land like that. The Navy, you come in, if you don't catch that wire, you got to do it again. So, but we have, as I said, the Navy does not like Stovall because it threatens the big deck, and that's what they want, is these big deck carriers. And they've been the number one thing, you know, for showing our power around the world. It's projection of power, the only country that can do this.
I know that speed and maneuverability are not the only factors that go into the advantage of greater thrust of one engine versus another, and fuel capacity and armament ordnance are the other two
Well,
elements.
yeah, our problem has been on the engines, is they just can't get one, put out enough thrust. And you know, see, I was against Stovall for a long time, against the Harrier, the 8, unless technology catches up with the concept. It sounds great, but it's hard to do. That's why nobody's in it except us. Yes, sir.
How about the maintenance of
So far, well, you know, it's got factory maintenance now, but the things I'm reading, they're flying down at Tyndall, which is the training thing for all three squadrons. They're evidently on schedule now with their sorties, where they were way behind. Now, it's going to take a long time until the Marines, until they let them start doing, you know, regular bombing hops and all that stuff.
right.
All they're doing is flying around in circles, I guess. I mean, it's... the airplane will do it, they just won't let them.
but there's no problem with the maintenance?
No, well, I'm sure there's problems, you know, support, and things keep breaking. See what happened on this airplane. It was 3,000 pounds overweight in the Stovall model. Well, it's 70% commonality, the frames, and it has a real wide front. That's why it's only 1.6, 1.7, the frontal area, the drag. So what they've done is, shoot, what was that on? What was your question?
The maintenance.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
Maintenance.
Well, they had to take all this weight out of the airplane because of that, in all the airplanes. And now what's happened, when you come in for a vertical landing, you got this big door up and everything's shaking, you know, the vibrations, the hinges and stuff are starting to break. So they have to reinforce those. So they're finding some problems. But what they're saying now, it's actually, maintenance-wise, just basic airplane, takeoff and landing and everything, it's now better than any airplane we've ever introduced. But the thing that isn't there is what we're paying for, is the avionics, the software. So that's, you know, what makes it be this magic best airplane in the world.
It's not there.
It's there, but it's not, I mean, they haven't proven it.
Oh, I see.
Really short, could you comment on the oxygen supply problems that seem to be really
In the F-22?
at 35? Or am I mixing it?
Yeah, you're mixing that up. I don't think they've had them yet, but they're not to say they won't. Here's what we have.
22, okay.
The Harrier started it. I used to fly with OBOGs, onboard oxygen generating system. Instead of having a liquid oxygen, a big tank
Right.
in your airplane, you got this little tiny ball, and it manufactures oxygen.
From water, right?
Yet we had no problems at all in the Harrier. Okay. My son, flying F-18s, now says they're starting to get those problems. And I had none when I was flying it. But he's flying, the airplanes are 20 years older, and he's maybe, what, but now the F-22, the Raptor, is the one that's had the problems. And they've had, I mean, you know, they lost an airplane up in Alaska, $250 million with the colonel in it, just bang, you know, because of the oxygen system. And I don't know what's wrong, because it used to be so simple.
Yeah, nobody knows. And last question for me, what's your take on Su-47 with forward swept wings?
That's the, what airplane is that?
That's Sukhoi.
Oh, okay, the Russians. I don't know anything about that one, but
Su-37,
what I'm talking, the Su-33 is the one that is really good, and that's what they're, the T-50 is a follow-on to that. The Su-33 is what they're going to put on the carrier, and that's a great airplane. But it's not, the things the Russians don't have is stealth. They don't have stealth, number one. And number two, their engines, they put out more power, but they're only 300-hour engines, and you got to change them. So, yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I imagine that this will change the dynamic of an airstrike package. For example, a traditional airstrike package, you've got the jammers, you've got the, air-to-air, and you've got the strikers, kind of all one package, aerial reviewers. But with this, I'm wondering, can you do multiple roles in one mission? So
Of course, they're all that. See, they got all three. They'll all be F-35s. They'll send 12 F-35s in. Maybe only 3 of them are, drop bombs. They may only need 6 of them, because some are jammers, siege, suppression of enemy air defense. They're shooting missiles when those guys light up, and the other guys are in there drop bombs. So see, one of the reasons they want to make it like this is so it's an economy measure. Instead of buying 3 different airplanes for 3 different services, you buy one. They tried that once before with the F-111, and it didn't work. And the Air Force ended up with the F-111. The Navy and Marines didn't get anything. Interesting story. I mean, but again, I'm a big supporter and believer in keeping our country free, and you get, freedom isn't free, but I don't like to see us pay for what we need money and a lot of other things. And I'm really disappointed in what I see in the military today, what's going on. And if I had a son today that was thinking about going in, I think I'd tell him, I think you want to think of something else, because I think it's really changed, and we've had the worst, sort of success in the last 2 JCSs, and Admiral Mullins and now Army General Dempsey, that, it's killing the military. What's happened is we've lost our warrior ethos. In place, they put in political correctness and diversity, and this is killing us, and it's really hard to sell. And there's a lot of reasons, particularly the repealing of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, hurt so much because the kids that are fighting the war, that on the ground side, they don't care, because they grew up with this stuff, and they took these tests. A lot of them were, they took a survey. A lot of them were rigged. But what they didn't ask them was the question, would you like to have one for a roommate? And the Marines, every single one said no. I mean, we don't, the Marine Corps is for one reason. It's not nation building, it's train Marines to win battles. And that's what you do. And we are a macho organization, and we don't change, like the Army, I think, had a thing, we want to join you. Marines don't want to join them, they're joining us. So it's just the way it is. But we'll survive it. I'm not worried about it. It's just different. I just hated to see the way they went about it. I thought Don't Ask, Don't Tell was a perfect solution. It had no problems. In fact, one of the funny stories is when I made general, what they do, only 8 of us because we have so few generals, made brigadier. We're all colonels. And they go around, they pick you up in an airplane with your wife, and they fly you back to Washington, D.C., and you go back there and you have a week with the Commandant of the Marine Corps. And they take you around, you meet the Secretary of Defense, you meet the Secretary of the Navy, and they take you to the Pentagon, all these places, and give you the secret handshake, and he tells you all about the Marine Corps. And they put your wife through some stuff, put them on TV, and see how they're going to react. I mean, it's funny as hell. But I'm in there one afternoon, in the Commandant's office. There's 8 of us talking to the Commandant, and a runner comes in and said, we want to see Colonel Sullivan over at the Pentagon. So I put on my blouse, go running downstairs. It was the headquarters Marine Corps in those days. It's the Navy Annex. Now it's at the Pentagon. So I go running down the steps, and I'm halfway down, and I'm accosted by 7 reporters. Hat on that said press, TV cameras going click, flash bulbs, mics in my face, all this stuff going on. First question, how come you have so many homosexuals in the Marine Corps? This was 1985. I go, what? I mean, in a millisecond, I'm saying, my God, I'm not even a general. I'm going to be on national TV screwing up the whole works. But they said, how come you have so many homosexuals in the Marine Corps? And I said, I've never met one, which is true. Which is true in 20-something years. So then they said, well, how come you don't let women fly? And we were the only service at that time that didn't let women fly. Well, the reason was because you couldn't go to war. They weren't allowed in combat. And why would you spend $2 million on a flight education? You know, that's how we look at it. So they let me go. And I went over to the Pentagon, and then they gave me a hostile interview and a non-hostile. See, this was J. Walter Thompson that the Marines hire to do this, and they make you swear you can't tell anybody else in your class because they get everybody once. And so, but that was really interesting because I was totally just taken aback when they said, how come you have so many homosexuals in the Marine Corps? And I'd never met one in my life. So when they debriefed and they said, okay, here's what you should have done. You did okay because you didn't say no comment and you didn't lie. But what you should have done is you should have said, I can't talk to 7 of you guys. I'll take one of you and we'll go in this room here and you can ask me questions. So that was supposedly the teaching point. I never paid any attention to that. You do whatever happens. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll continue the tactics and strategy unit of the conference with Lieutenant Colonel Robert Gibbs.